Later in the afternoon,
let us
the
pray.
House will resolve itself into
Our
committee
Father,
supply
we thank
to deal
you
with the
for your
estimates of the
abundant
Department of Career Development and
province
Employment.
and ourselves.
Remember, come visit your legislature. When you come here, we'll welcome you, and I hope that you'll have a very good visit, because we've now also improved our presentation to the general public, because now we have a video which explains the total operation of the Assembly.
Presenting petitions.
Called by Edmonton Meadowlark.
Mr. Speaker, I have the pleasure to introduce a petition signed by some 12,000 law-abiding Albertans, which reads, well, they're asking for the government to obey the law and immediately halt construction of the Old Man River Dam.
Petition on behalf of Friends of the Athabasca Environmental Association and others, calling for signed by 6,000 Albertans, calling for a delay on the northern pulp mills until such times as proper environmental impact assessments are done. Particularly, they are focusing in this case on the Alberta Pacific project, and it is particularly timely, given the comments recently by the Premier shedding doubt about the recommendations of that process.
Debate. Thank you. Member for Edmonton Jasper, please.
Mr. Speaker, I have a further 6,000 signatures on a petition calling for a moratorium on pulp mills until there's full environmental impact assessment, pursuant to the federal guidelines, bringing the total to some 24,000 signatures on this particular petition.
We'll compare them.
And receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motion.
Member.
That after question period today, I will seek unanimous consent of this legislature to consider the following motion. That this House commend the Canada Parks and Wilderness Foundation and Alberta Wilderness Association for hosting the planned Endangered Spaces event tonight in Edmonton, and that this House endorse the objective of conserving Alberta's endangered wilderness areas, especially the 14 ecological zones that are currently inadequately protected.
Introduction of bills.
Edmonton Milton.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce Bill 278, an act to amend the Public Service Employee Relations Act. When passed, Mr. Speaker, this act will provide the same rights to Assembly employees to bargain collectively that exist for other Alberta workers.
The member for Edmonton Mill Woods has moved first reading to Bill 278, an act to amend the Public Service Employee Relations Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 278, an act to amend the Public Service Employee Relations Act, introduced by the Honourable Member, Mr. Gibault, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
Mr. Speaker, as required by statute, I wish to table the report respecting the operations of the Gas Alberta Operating Fund for the year end March 31, 1989, together with the audited financial statement for that period.
Member for Edmonton Jasper, please.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to file 4 copies of a government news release dated March 2nd, in which the Premier, 2 ministers, and an MLA specifically accepted certain recommendations of the Alberta Pacific Environmental Impact Assessment Review Board report.
Send it to Ralph.
Introduction of special guests.
Now, Leader, followed by the Solicitor General.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce to you, members of the Assembly, the former MLA from Edmonton Glengarry, John Uni. He's paying us a visit today to see what he's missed over this period of time. He's also accompanied by colleague, Daryl Dufresne, and his son, Rivard. I'd ask them to stand in the public gallery and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to introduce today to you, through you, to members of our Assembly, colleagues from the Atlantic provinces that are here attending the International Congress on Drinking and Driving, which has a registration of close to 500 now from around the world. In your gallery, Mr. Speaker, is the Honorable Paul Dix, Minister of Justice and Attorney General from Newfoundland. I would ask them to stand, please. And also the Honorable Conrad Landry, Solicitor General for the province of New Brunswick. Can you please stand? And Mr. Ian Culligan, the Executive Directors of Corrections from New Brunswick. They are here with an employee from my department, Ms. Paulette Doyle. Would they please acknowledge?
Calgary Fish Creek, followed by Edmonton Jasper Place.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Seated today in both the public and members' galleries, Mr. Speaker, we have some guests from the St. Philip's School in the Calgary Fish Creek constituency. There are 25 students in all, and they are accompanied today by their teacher, Luba Daduke, and parents Wally Binda, Kathleen Ball, Gail McCoy, and Gail Krenkel. I wonder if our guests might stand in both those galleries this afternoon and receive the traditional warm welcome of the members.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce two distinguished Albertans who have given many countless thousands of hours toward a healthy future for all of us. They are Dr. Louis Schmidroth of the Friends of the Athabasca and Cliff Wallace of the Friends of the Old Man.
Calgary Milliken.
Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to introduce 30 students and their instructors from that fine institution down in Calgary Milliken called Alberta Vocational Center. These young people are upgrading their education, as well as some of them are taking ESL to improve their English. They're accompanied by their instructors, Hilary Inglis and Karen Folkheim, and a member of the student council, Mr. Larry Keating. And I'd like for them, they're in the members or public gallery, and I'd like for them to rise and receive the warm traditional welcome of the legislature.
Edmonton Meadowlark, followed by Edmonton Beverly.
Speaker, I rise to introduce to you and through you to the members of the legislature Michael Quinn, who is with the World Wildlife Fund, and he is here today in support of the petition that I presented earlier calling for a moratorium on pulp mills until proper EIAs can be done. I'd ask that the members of the legislature join me in welcoming him today.
Edmonton Beverly.
It's a pleasure for me today to introduce to you and to members of the Assembly 13 or 12 young ladies from the 33rd Girl Guides group from Kennydale. They're accompanied by their group leader, Rhonda Nielsen. They're in the public gallery. I'd ask them to rise and receive the welcome of the Assembly.
St. Paul.
Speaker, on behalf of my colleague Steve Zaruski, it is my pleasure to introduce to you and to members of this Assembly the County of Smoky Lake Reeve, Fred Moshansky, Deputy Reeve Darrell Cholak, Councilors Bob Novikowski, Joe Dombowski, and Terry Katarenchuk, also Public Works Foreman Walter Sadaway. Also from the County of Thorhild, County of Reeve, First County Manager Nick Lazotsky, County Reeve Bill Costu, and Councilors Kevin Lazonsky. I would now ask him to rise and receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
Oral question period. Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, to the Premier, and we want to go back, Mr. Speaker, to his taxing budget. You know, the one that taxes, Mr. Speaker. But when you add up the increased revenues that the government expects to collect, according to the most recent budget, now I admit that the figures may be out, Mr. Speaker, but Using their figures, the tax grab nets some $410 million in new taxes from individual Albertans and just $247 million from corporations, Mr. Speaker. I would point out that when this government came to power, Mr. Speaker, roughly 60% of revenues came from individuals and 40% from corporations. Even with the limited amount that they're taxing in this budget, the corporations, Mr. Speaker, it will still be a 90-10 ratio.
Shame.
Mr. Speaker, in this province, people have had enough of this. They want some fairness, Mr. Speaker.
Hear, hear.
And my question to the Premier, who is the leader of the government, why didn't this government move in the budget towards tax fairness by making wealthy, profitable corporations start paying their fair share?
Right on.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition has raised this matter over a period of years with the Honourable Provincial Treasurer. They get into back and forth on the reasons for the statistics that he is able to selectively pick in trying to make a case. I suggest that he does it again when the Provincial Treasurer is here. I think it's a reasonable debate he wants to get into, and I think he should. And I will take his question as notice and have the Provincial Treasurer give him the lesson once again.
Supplementary.
The Premier is supposed to be in charge of the general policy thrust of this government, not the Treasurer, Mr. Speaker. Not the Treasurer. And that's why I was asking about, Mr. Speaker. Finally, the government did do something right. They brought in a tax on the capital of financial institutions. It's nice to say, especially when the Treasurer last year slammed the idea as being socialist last year, Mr. Speaker. So to this socialist Premier, Mr. Speaker, we say that's just a drop in the bucket. And my question is a policy one. Why is this Premier, as a leader of the government, not prepared to bring in a minimum tax on corporations, even Ronald Reagan did in the United States, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, the government considers all manner of ways of balancing the budget. The government listens to Albertans, talks to people across this country, and tries to assess what's best for Albertans. Then we prepare a budget, we bring it before the people's representatives here in the legislature, and see whether it is supported and passed. That's what the process that's going on, Mr. Speaker. In this budget, there is quite a variety of help from various parts of this province, groups who are attempting to work together to make sure that we move first in a major way to reduce a deficit, and secondly, to move towards the balanced budget. That's what's happening. I've been traveling about the province, talking to the people of Alberta, and they tell me they're pleased with the way this budget has been designed and presented.
Final.
Mr. Speaker, you must have been traveling to the Petroleum Club, because I certainly haven't, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, $410 million on the backs of people to cover the mismanagement of this government. And we've asked the government in the past why they haven't done it. They said it's not fair to raise corporate taxes when the economy's bad. Now they tell us that the economy is strong and booming. We've heard that from both the Premier and the Treasurer. Apparently it's still not a good time. So my question to the Premier is, can the Premier tell us, if it's no good when times are tough and no good when times are good, when is a good time to raise the taxes, Mr. Speaker?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I find it remarkable the honourable member would have such poor research being done by his researchers that he wouldn't realize that there are business tax increases in this budget. There's taxes on financial institutions. There's some $300 million less in incentives for the petroleum industry. Surely the honourable member, Mr. Speaker, we should expect him to at least take the time to read the budget speech and then go into the material. Then, in details in Committee of Supply, I'm sure the honourable member will finally understand that this is a balanced budget that is helping a balanced document that's helping all Albertans move towards a balanced budget.
That was pretty weak pounding there. Here's a Premier that wants to hide behind the Treasurer answering the questions, Mr. Speaker, but I'd like to designate my second question to the member from Edmonton Jasper Place.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Go get him.
Take cover, Ralph. Had the Minister of the Environment been invited to the inner group that met in the Premier's office last Tuesday to meet with ALPAC, he would have been told that ALPAC wants to put a process of chlorine dioxide and hydrogen peroxide in the bleaching of the pulp mill. Now, Mr. Speaker, this technology has never been tried anywhere else in the world. In their Crestbrook mill, they tried it once on a trial batch. No one knows the environmental impact of this particular technology. Will the Minister therefore assure the House that this proposal will be treated as a brand new proposal, back to square one, and will be led to an environmental impact assessment under the new guidelines tabled the other day?
Well, Mr. Speaker, all I can say is the honourable member is talking about a phantom proposal. And if we're talking about a phantom proposal, perhaps we can do a phantom EIA on a phantom proposal.
Mr. Speaker, if the Minister went to the meetings, he would know more about it.
Phantom of the department.
The Minister has told many Albertans, including a province-wide convention of environmental organizations on March 12th, that a new ALPAC project will mean a new EIA, a new assessment study, new review, new public hearings. Will the Minister today confirm what he said to other Albertans, that is, that a new ALPAC proposal can't escape public hearings?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'll repeat again, what we're talking about here is something that is totally hypothetical. We're talking about a phantom project. And if he wants me to do a phantom EIA and a phantom project, then we'll do one.
Let's have the last
Speaker,
question with
perhaps
some
we'll ask
reality.
somebody who was there at the meeting, to the Premier. The ALPAC Review Board report has been prepared by a panel from all walks of life. In so doing, they had the very best scientific evidence available. In fact, I counted 10 world-class scientists who appeared before or sat on that panel. A lot of Albertans are wondering what right the Premier has, who has no scientific background whatsoever, to question the work of so many distinguished scientists. And I would like the Premier to say today, has he read that report, cover to cover? Have you read it?
Yes, I have, Mr. Speaker, and I bet most of the honourable member's colleagues haven't. Also, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Environment was invited to the meeting. He had a problem with going to Globe 90 and wasn't able to be there. But, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member should know. The honourable member should know that it was a very good meeting. It was a meeting in which we continued to emphasize the very position that we stated on March the 2nd. I'm kind of glad the honourable member was helping in tabling the press release, because the House wasn't in then, in which Premier Getty announced that the government accepts the report's specific recommendation that the ALPAC project not proceed as presently planned until further studies can ensure the mill will have no serious environmental impact on life in the river and downstream users. This report does not mean the project is dead, the Premier said. And we will start a comprehensive review of its recommendations right away. Now, Mr. Speaker, there are many reports that come to the government. There are reports from people, for instance, former provincial treasurer, the Honourable Mr. Heinemann, where we take time to assess the report. There are reports that come from the Ombudsman. There are reports that come from the Auditor General. We take time to assess the reports. So I just tell the honourable member, all this high-blown rhetoric about somehow hurting or turning down or saying something negative about people because you take time to assess a report, it's just a pile of baloney. And it happens regularly. This government is going to do it on a cool, competent basis, because that's the way the people of Alberta want us to do it.
Edmonton Glengarry, Leader of the Liberal Party.
Mr. Speaker, the government had to be prodded into an environmental review of the massive ALPAC project in northern Alberta. And to the credit of the government, they not only embraced the review process, but the Premier later acknowledged, to his credit, that he was prepared to live with the tough recommendations set out by the review panel. Now the Premier has done an about-face. The Premier has challenged the credibility of the review panel. And we have the astonishing spectacle of the Phantom of the Environment wandering the halls of the Legislative Assembly, wondering what he should say, because he hasn't had an opportunity to talk to his boss to get the official party line.
The opera was in the basement.
Mr. Speaker, the citizens of Alberta want leadership on massive projects that affect the environment. My first question to the Premier is this. Inasmuch as the statements made by the ALPAC lawyer, he was followed up by the President with statements as well on the last day of the public hearings, clearly indicated that ALPAC was satisfied that there was a credibility, they said, to the review panel's process. What is it that ALPAC has said to the Premier that has allowed and forced or prompted the Premier to do an about-face?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think what the people of Alberta would do would want the honourable leader of the Liberal Party to carry out his research other than on the front page of a newspaper and to take the time to get the facts. I read the facts to them today, and he has a written question, I guess, and he's just got to read it because his researcher sticks it in his hand. The government's position is in this document. I was tabled today. I've read it today, that we picked the specific recommendation that we agreed to of stopping the report until we had the studies as the project is presently envisioned, and that we were going to do a complete assessment of it. The Minister of Environment has said the same thing, and we have put in place the assessment by the various departments. And what's unreasonable about that? Only those who are so emotionally head over heels with lack of reason who would say that we just accept things blindly. And maybe that's the kind of leadership the Liberal Party has.
Hear, hear. Speaker, what's unreasonable is that the Premier is usually pretty steadfast in a direction that he sets out for himself, but that's not the case here, where there is an about-face, and it's an incredible about-face. My second question to the Premier is this. Given that much of the scientific evidence that was presented at the review panel process was evidence that came from Alberta environmental scientists, and given now that the Premier is hiring outside scientists to challenge that evidence, isn't this a slap in the face to your own departmental officials, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Premier?
Again, Mr. Speaker, I wish the honourable member would in some way show us where he gets these crazy allegations. The government's position was put out on March the 2nd. I referred to it. Now, somehow his mind is twisted into that we have some kind of a reversal. What a lot of nonsense. We said on the 2nd that all departments that are impacted by the report of the review board will start a comprehensive review of its recommendations right away. In addition, an independent assessment of the scientific data in the review board report will be launched. This independent assessment will use recognized world experts and will be completed as soon as possible. Now, we haven't changed from those positions, and we're doing it. And that's what the people of Alberta want. A government that says, here is what we're going to do, and then doesn't.
Final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the federal official that I spoke to yesterday, that scientist who has reviewed the review panel recommendations, says that those scientific findings and recommendations dealing with scientific matters are proper, are good, are well researched and well presented. What issues, other than the issues that the honourable member from Lac-La-Biche has raised to the Premier's attention, and it, I think, is worth noting that the honourable member from Lac-La-Biche has no concern over the environment, what issues, other than that one issue, Mr. Speaker, has the Premier got to tell Albertans that is his reason for challenging the credibility of the review process.
Thank you. And the comment with reference to the member for Athabasca-Lac-La-Biche was totally out of order. Premier.
Mr. Speaker, it's remarkable that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition would head to Ottawa to get his direction on this matter. It really is something. That where he will go is just head to Ottawa. That's where he's got his assistance in the past, Mr. Speaker, as we know, and it's only natural for him to do that. Let's remember what the Minister of Environment for the federal government did. He said, now that we have this report, we want to do a full assessment of it also. So what kind of nonsense we're getting from this member? And if I can, Mr. Speaker, because the member for Athabasca-Lac-La-Biche represents his people in this legislature with tremendous determination and ability, and a cheap shot from the leader of the Liberal Party is not warranted.
Calgary Fish Creek, followed by Edmonton Beverly. Calgary Fish Creek, thank you very. Excuse me, honourable member. Order, please. Calgary Fish Creek.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to address a question this afternoon to the Attorney General regarding the Alberta Gaming Commission, specifically the Commission's puzzling policy of preventing such groups as high school concert bands from using the proceeds of their bingos and casinos and pool tickets to defray the high cost of international travel. I'm wondering, Mr. Speaker, can the Attorney General explain or perhaps justify the policy in light of the fact that probably all of the contributors to those gaming proceeds would wholeheartedly approve of their contributions being used for such a purpose?
Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, the Gaming Commission is an arm's length body, and they work under the parameters set out under the Criminal Code for the conduct of lotteries, or better known as gaming. They had a policy established in 1987 which allowed travel within the parameters allowed under the Criminal Code. They were observing a lot of abuse of this privilege over time and brought out a new policy, I think dated January 1st of 1990, which they admit now is an overreaction. And they are in the process of revisiting that, and hopefully will very shortly be coming out with a new policy back to the 87 that will allow travel within the parameters, again, of the code.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm certainly encouraged by the Attorney General's reply in the House this afternoon, but given the fact that many of these groups in Calgary and throughout the province are now planning and budgeting for international competitions and programs later this year, could the Attorney General assure the Assembly that he'll expedite the policy review and revision?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I spoke to the chairman of the Gaming Commission yesterday, and he advised that within the next week to 2 weeks he should be out with the policy with parameters which will indicate how they'll be able to access travel within those policy restrictions.
Edmonton Beverly.
Mr. Speaker, Albertans are now paying the price for years of conservative waste and mismanagement as the government sells off Crown corporations in yet another attempt to cook the books. Mr. Speaker, this government has been looking for a buyer to get rid itself of the Alberta Mortgage Housing Corporation off its hands. Now that they have squandered $500 billion from general revenue and billions more from the Heritage Trust Fund. My question then is to the Minister of Municipal Affairs. Will the Minister confirm that the Government Priorities Committee has approved the sale of the Alberta Mortgage Housing Corporation to their mortgage portfolio to Montreal Trust, and to tell the Assembly for how much we've given it away for.
We only allow one question at a time, thanks.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is really being misinformed and is making most likely an honest attempt. It sort of comes with the territory to mislead us again in this Assembly and also the people of Alberta. After some difficult year, following 1982, there were some very difficult years in this province when the oil prices dropped and real estate and land values dropped as well. And it happened both in the private sector and in the public sector. Certainly the value in terms of the real estate and the land went down significantly, and it's in the annual report indicating that some of the debt there would be around $600 million. We are taking a very responsible position at this time as government to recover every public dollar that's possible in that corporation. Some significant changes are occurring within the review that's taking place at the present time, relative to mortgages, relative to real estate, relative to land. And when the review is finished, the books will be in a much improved position, and the credit certainly goes to the leadership with regards leadership of the Premier in this province. The question with regards to the mortgage portfolio that was asked by the member, we are looking at various ways by which we can put the mortgage portfolio back into other hands for administration. There are a number of options. At the present time, no commitment has been made, and in due process, a commitment I hope will be made that will be the best for the people in this province.
Country Edmonton Beverly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The fact of the matter is still that, as far as we're concerned, this government is attempting to sell off Alberta Mortgage Housing Corporation mortgage properties. And I'm asking the Minister, are you not going to sell this to an Eastern organization, Montreal Trust?
Very good. Mr. Speaker, no commitment has been made at all in terms of Montreal Trust. They have indicated an interest. A number of other private organizations have indicated an interest. There are other organizations as well as them that are indicating an interest at the present time. And we are looking at all of the options that are there. But by the inference of the honourable member's question, to indicate that a commitment has been made to some Eastern organization, I think that's unfair and certainly uncalled for at this time.
Calgary Buffalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is to the Premier. Today, delegations from the 4 western provinces are meeting in Edmonton in order to discuss the impasse over the Meech Lake Accord. Now that discussions are being reopened, we need to take steps to advance the cause of Senate reform by at the very least eliminating the very foolish requirement of unanimity. Unfortunately, the comments of the Minister of Federal and Intergovernmental Affairs yesterday and independent information we have received indicate that the government has instructed our delegation not to propose any changes whatsoever of our own to advance Senate reform or otherwise. I'm wondering whether the Premier can tell this House clearly and precisely whether our delegation has been instructed not to seek any changes or additions of our own to the Meech Lake Accord, but merely to assess the New Brunswick proposals.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member would know, if he is paying attention to the New Brunswick proposals, that they do not change the Meech Lake Accord. They are, in fact, a companion or a parallel resolution in their legislature. May or may not become a constitutional accord, as the Meech Lake Accord is. What the Alberta members of the Western Canadian Task Force are doing is assessing the initiatives that have been offered from a variety of governments, from the Prime Minister, from the Premier of New Brunswick, from the Premier of British Columbia, and also some other discussions that have been brought to our attention from the Premier of Manitoba and citizens. And they will look at those and we'll see whether there is a common Western Canadian provincial position. I don't know how that will work out, except to say to the honourable member that on these matters, I consider that they are so important that they are not matters where one should be attempting to score, if you want, debating points, but would rather be trying to be positive and try and think of the benefits of unifying our country and being able to proceed then to the great potential that this nation has.
Supplementary Calgary Buffalo, followed by Bow Valley.
Well, to heck with the debating points. Premier Wells has made it clear substantively that we're never going to get Senate reform if Meech Lake goes through. Now, since the federal government has undertaken to conduct further public hearings, I'm wondering whether the Premier will finally realize that it's time to have a committee of this House hold public hearings across this province so we can hear what Albertans have been saying loudly and clearly, and that's change Meech Lake.
About time. Good hit.
Now, Mr. Speaker, surprising from a person who's a member of this legislature, where we had detailed consideration, the accord was placed on the order paper, sat over a full period of some 6 months, came back, was debated, and then unanimously approved by the representatives of the people of Alberta. I wonder where the honourable member was during that period of time.
Exactly.
Bow Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs, and it concerns the Seniors Medical Alert program that is, I understand, been in use in some places in Alberta. One of the problems is that the rural seniors in Alberta are at risk the most as far as the need of this program, and it's my understanding that there's some problems. Now, I wonder if the minister could tell us whether the rural people are able to use this, or if not, when?
Mr. Speaker, in answer to the honourable member, in terms of the Seniors Medical Alert program, seniors have two accesses to $700 of support for the Medical Alert Unit through the Seniors Independent Living Program and the Home Adaptation Program. Both of those programs are available to all rural senior citizens across this province. There are a few in some areas where single-line service is not available, but the government, as we all recognize, announced a program following the 1986 election that the single-line service would be provided to all Albertans, so all Albertans would be treated on a very equal basis. That program will conclude, I believe, by be in place by spring 1991. At that point, those few seniors that are not eligible for the service will be eligible and be able to receive the benefits of a very excellent program in this province.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker. The minister has told us that this is a terrific program, and I don't disagree with him. Could he tell us how many people are today using the program?
Mr. Speaker, there are a large number in the province that have access to some 21 non-profit agencies that provide the service, two commercial groups, and as well a variety of appliances. But, Mr. Speaker, the program has had a good take-up, and I'm sure the added security that we've given to those seniors so that they know if they have a difficulty where they fall or something happens to them physically, that they're able to reach a service instantly and have someone come to their attention. And I know a number of seniors, and I'm sure we are all aware of seniors in this, in terms of direct relatives or friends, that feel so much better because of that program, and that they're able to stay in their own home and feel secure without someone checking in with them all the time. So, Mr. Speaker, the program has been well taken up and is certainly doing a very excellent job in the province.
Edmonton Avonmore, then West Loch Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister responsible for women. Once again, we see that the government has ignored the voice of Alberta women and failed to understand the real causes of economic disparities they suffer. by increasing funding to the Stepping Stones program, a program which glorifies women's entrance into non-traditional work. The government is perpetuating the undervaluation of work traditionally done by women, work that is essential to the well-being of society. My question is to the Minister. In view of the fact that the major causes of women's economic disparity include the failure to fairly value work traditionally done by women and to ensure women have access to quality, affordable daycare, will the Minister commit to implementing pay equity legislation and to negotiating with the Minister of Family and Social Services for funding for training and adequate compensation for childcare workers?
Mr. Speaker, let me say this about the Stepping Stones program. And let me share with all members of this House a comment that was made to me by a homemaker and a partner in a farm enterprise in southern Alberta, who is a member of the Alberta Women Federation of Women, AFWAF as it's sometimes known. She said to me, "We must educate all of our daughters. We must make sure that while they're in school, they get skills. And the reason for that is," she said, "all of their options are then left open to them. And if one of their options is to be a full-time homemaker, that is an excellent choice. But how often does it happen that our husbands die in an accident or through a heart attack? How often is it that the woman, and often therefore with the children, becomes the sole support of the family? We must make sure that she has something to fall back on that will enable her to support her family. Stepping Stones is in one small way a contribution to that effort."
Supplementary, Edmonton Avonmore.
Well, Mr. Speaker, without adequate child care, a mother cannot exercise those options. Mr. Speaker, this is Equality Week at the University of Alberta, and the barriers to women's full participation in society are being discussed. These barriers include sexism, sexual harassment, and sexual assault. My question to the Minister is, will the Minister commit to funding educational programs to eliminate sexism and sexual harassment as it occurs in our educational institutions and the workplace? Programs that go beyond...
No. Thank you, honourable member. Please.
Mr. Speaker, I agree to this extent that sexism is a scourge, and I also agree that sexual harassment is an abuse of power, and I also agree that we should not encourage in our written materials in the schools, and the Minister of Education, I'm sure, will want to supplement my answer in this effect. And others of my colleagues may as well wish to share with the House all of the programs that we are putting forward in this event. I will say this, that the Human Rights Commission has recently identified that fully 30% of the cases that are coming to it are complaints based on sexual harassment in the workplace. And they have recently said that they are going to aggressively pursue that area, and a large component of it will be educating Albertans so that they know, first of all, what sexual harassment is, and secondly, what remedies there are available. In the meantime, I might add, I have, at the Human Rights Commission request, appointed a board of inquiry, a panel of 3 people, to investigate a case that has recently come forward, and I would expect that their judgment will be a precedent-setting judgment, which we can share with all Albertans, which again will go in the direction of educating, as the member has requested.
Very briefly. Very briefly.
Particular as the member for Edmonton Avonmore related to the development and training of child care workers and daycare workers, I would like to emphasize that the Department of Career Development and Employment will be glad to assist those in the training areas. And as we understand and learn under the new regulations and guidelines, we're prepared to develop programs to assist in that regard.
Fox Sturgeon, followed by Calgary Foothills.
My question is to the Premier. A couple days ago, the Mulroney government announced they reached a $25 million agreement with the Woodland Cree Band of northern Alberta, thereby undermining and undercutting the Lubicon's long fight for social justice. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Premier has shown in the past some sympathy for the Lubicon cause, although maybe a little short in getting results. But I'd like to ask the Premier, Mr. Speaker, is whether his government is now going to follow the scurrilous practice of his federal cousins and recognize the Woodland Cree Band.
Mr. Speaker, I must say that there are parts of the honourable member's question that seem particularly debatable, and I wonder why he would be striking out at a group of native people in Alberta and having an agreement with them being scurrilous. I can hardly understand why he would come to that conclusion. Nevertheless, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure some of this information regarding the Woodland Cree negotiations has been made available to our Attorney General, who's responsible for Native matters in our cabinet, and he may wish to augment my answers. I want the honourable member to know that I have continued to maintain close contacts with Chief Ominiuk of the Lubicon Band. We are continuing to have our negotiators negotiate with theirs to see if there's any way possible, by working closely together, we can bring their long-standing request for a reserve and a settlement to a happy ending. I found my relationship with the Lubicon chief and his people to be a very warm and friendly one, and I continue to work with them in every way I possibly can.
Briefly, the Premier's comments. The Woodland Cree Band is a band that has been recognized as having a potential claim by the federal government. We have, in fact, arranged a meeting with the band and their representatives. I believe it's April the 23rd or 24th. It isn't a matter of our recognizing the band. The federal government has total jurisdiction in recognizing any band that may have a land entitlement claim, and our responsibility under the Natural Resources Transfer Act is to provide 128 acres per person that is recognized by the federal government. And we're under process at the time now of dealing with their list to find out what numbers there are, and look forward to continuing a dialogue with the chief, John Cardinal, as well as with the Lubicon Band, and hope that we can get the federal government back to the table to make settlement in that claim.
Westlock Sturgeon supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, it doesn't sound good for the Lubicons. They could be excused if they want to change the name of the latest gift horse to White Mud. But I would like to ask the Premier then whether or not, that surely in view of the fact that if the White Mud, or if the Woodland Cree Band is recognized, surely that means less mineral rights for the Lubicons. How does he equate giving the Woodland Cree Band mineral rights and not taking it away from the Lubicons?
Mr. Speaker, maybe we should have the honourable minister or member send smoke signals. It might help to get his message more clearly than that question that he just tried to toss across the chamber. Mr. Speaker, we do not have all the details of the negotiation with the Woodland Cree Band, as the Honourable Attorney General mentioned. I think over a period of time, we would work to have an agreement with all Native groups who are looking for solid settlements in this province.
Calgary Foothills, then Bakerville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've had a number of calls from the constituents of Calgary Foothills with expressing grave concerns about an alleged wolf kill. And it was my understanding that we had some very strict regulations in place that governed the number of animals that could actually be hunted and killed each year. To the Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife, is this alleged wolf kill sanctioned by your department?
Mr. Speaker, the whole area of wolves in Alberta is a very topical one at the moment. It's certainly receiving a lot of discussion, and it's a very sensitive issue. And there are some widely held views on both sides of that particular problem.
I've been working closely with my department on having a good assessment of the letters that I get and the recommendations coming from the biologists, and also referred the issue to the Fish and Wildlife Advisory Committee, which is made up of 12 public organizations across this province, including the Naturalists and the Alberta Fish and Game Association. And they will be making recommendations to me, I expect shortly, because I know they've reviewed the issue, will be making recommendations to me about what the future will be. And before making any firm decisions on that issue, I want to make sure that I receive their report.
Supplementary.
But yes, Mr. Speaker, to enhance this a little further and make it more difficult, sir, I understand further that there has actually been a bounty that has been offered through the Fish and Game Association of $150 a pelt to people that would go out and slaughter these animals. And could the minister clarify your position of your department on bounty hunting?
Well, Mr. Speaker, there is no bounty on wolves in Alberta. There is a program that was instituted by the Alberta Fish and Game Association that was basically an incentive in certain areas of the province, recognizing the pressure that was building on other wildlife resources, wool, moose, and caribou as an example. They're not doing anything illegal with what they're doing, but I don't support that program, and I've made that absolutely clear that I don't support the program. I felt that they were premature in taking that action because it is a very sensitive issue and one that should receive wide discussion among the interest groups to see, number one, is it a problem? If it is, what is the best approach to it? The whole area of wolf management in Alberta, we have some to 3,000 to 5,000 wolves in Alberta, depending on the season of the year. We want to maintain that number of wolves in perpetuity. So to put the pressure on the wolf resource is something that we don't want to do, but we recognize that there are specific areas of the province where there is a problem, and I'll await the Fish and Wildlife Advisory Committee report before taking any action.
Bill, followed by Calgary Northwest, if there's time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The proposed Northern Lights Regional Library System was developed through the tireless efforts of a number of people determined to improve the quality and availability of library service to rural Albertans in the northeastern part of the province. And they were encouraged in their efforts by the minister and his department. They successfully crossed every bridge and jumped through every hoop that was placed before them and are now ready to formally establish the system.
Wasn't a curling race.
However, Mr. Speaker, the members of the interim board and indeed the over 100,000 citizens of northeastern Alberta to be served by this system were told by the Minister of Culture and Multiculturalism on March 26th that the government was not going to live up to its end of the bargain and provide the money required to establish the system. And I'd like to ask the Minister how he can justify this callous and unfair treatment of the people of northeastern Alberta only days after he was bragging in his budget press release about the government's commitment to making effective library service available to all Albertans.
Mr. Speaker, I think the government's commitment to libraries and library services is well known, and it was again addressed by the provincial treasurer the other night in his announcement that there will be a 3% increase for library grants to all libraries across the province. The unfortunate thing that happened in the northeastern part of the province, and I sympathize with the many hours the volunteers have put in there, and I went there personally to convey my sadness at the situation there. But the unfortunate thing was that the planning process that has taken a number of years ended at a time when the government is deeply committed to a balanced budget. And unfortunately, the planning process and the monies available did not mesh exactly as we all would have hoped, and therefore the government was unable to commit new dollars to a new project in order to be able to protect the existing projects.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday in the House, the minister responsible for lotteries said that the last thing we want to do is to discourage and frustrate volunteers who've worked very hard. And the minister referred to these volunteers. There are 50 of them who have contributed more than 250 person years to developing this system and gathering community support. And I'd like to ask the minister, in view of the fact that there's substantial community support and expectation for the system, and that the minister's department has put a considerable amount of money into developing this proposal over the years, will the minister give his assurance to the people of northeastern Alberta that his commitment to the Northeast Regional Library System is firm and that he's going to put his money where his mouth is and announce funding establishment for this system right now?
Hear, hear.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the commitment to the Northeast Library System has not changed in one bit. In my meeting with the board, I indicated that I was deeply committed to the establishment of the Northeast System. I offered them the help that I was able to offer in terms of a staff member to do the work that the board needed done, to offer office space, furniture if required, that we would make every effort to help them do what projects they may want to do over the course of the next time. I would even go so far as to establish the board as a corporate entity, to give it the basis from which to operate. But, Mr. Speaker, the expected allocation of funds is not there, but the commitment that I made to the board and that I'll make again to the House today is the minute that we find the new money, we'll give it to the board and we'll get it rolling.
Yesterday afternoon, a point of order was raised by the Minister of Career Development and Employment with regard to some statements as made by the member for Edmonton Kingsway. The chair had intended to rule yesterday afternoon, but because of the division which transpired, we were unable to do so. The chair has reviewed the Blues and the Hansard in this regard, and really feels that there were some statements made by the member for Edmonton Kingsway that were a bit too much, if you will. And one of the difficulties here is that in this instance, that a member of the general public was named, and it was alleged that this individual and his lawyer had put together a deal and made something like $12 million. Then the member went on to say, at least we're pretty sure of it. It may not be exactly correct. And the problem with comments like that in terms of debate or in question period is that it really does lead for distortions, and it makes it very difficult. It rather means that it is impossible for a member of the general public to be able to defend himself. The chair in this case is not prepared to say that this was a point of order, but indeed a legitimate action on behalf of the minister, drawing to the attention of the chair and to all members of the House that this type of comment really is not worthy of members of a parliament. The member for Edmonton Kingsway also said that it was up to the government to produce a document to prove that his allegation was inaccurate. Well, that also is a bit difficult, honourable members, because the whole parliamentary process does also include within it the concern that members raising various points and making various statements really are themselves responsible for the accuracy of their comments and their allegations. So in this regard, the chair then takes the opportunity to admonish members and to remind them of the citation from Beauchesne, which is 493, subsection 4. The Speaker has cautioned members to exercise great care in making statements about persons who are outside the House and unable to reply. The chair also, in other comments with the Deputy Speaker and the Deputy Chairman of Committee, will be bringing this matter to their attention, so that indeed in future debates in the House members will be brought to order when they start making similar allegations. Before we get to orders of the day, we have to deal with a request. Standing Order 40, member for West Yellowhead.
Be it resolved that the House commend the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society of Alberta and the Alberta Wilderness Association for hosting the planned Endangered Species event tonight in Edmonton. That this House endorse the objective of conserving Alberta's endangered wilderness areas, especially the 14 ecological zones that are currently inadequately protected. Mr. Speaker, these individuals work very hard as volunteers throughout this province to protect the environment of Alberta and to protect the environment of Canada. Mr. Speaker, they should be commended for their hard work, and I ask the Assembly to congratulate and endorse these volunteers for Alberta through this resolution.
The member for West Yellowhead has been speaking to urgency of of debate on this proposed motion. All those in favor of granting unanimous consent that the matter proceed, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. No. Request fails. Orders of the day. Orders of the day.
Government bills and orders for third reading. Bill number 12, Honorable Mr. Johnston.